All right, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you have ever read Charisma magazine? Okay. Well, Charisma magazine is one of the few Christian publications that hasn't gone woke. They do not apologize for the gospel, and therefore I do not apologize for inviting the founder of Charisma magazine to be here today with us. And to introduce today's speaker, we have a quick intro video. Devin, hit it.
Stephen Strang is the founder and CEO of Charisma Media, which began as a magazine publishing organization in 1975, with Charisma Magazine as its flagship medium to the world. Charisma is now one of the nation's leading conservative magazines. Through the years, Stephen has seen the success of Charisma take off with the addition of digital magazines, the Charisma Plus app, and the breakthrough Charisma Podcast Network, which has accrued more than 70 million downloads since its debut in 2015. Strang's widely popular Strang Report is an anchor for the Charisma Podcast Network and has been downloaded more than 10.4 million times. Not only has Stephen Strang been able to effectively found a culture-transforming media group, but his success extends to book publishing as well, publishing over 2,000 books, including 16 New York Times bestsellers. Stephen Strang is a true pioneer of bringing faith and freedom together to break the mold of secularism, which is evident in the continued success of Charisma and his own personal triumphs. He has been voted one of the 25 most influential evangelicals in America by Time magazine, has interviewed 4 U.S. presidents, and has been featured on many outlets including Fox News, CBN, Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk, and thedailycaller.com. His book, God and Donald Trump, was a bestseller brandished by the president at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland in 2018. Stephen is a passionate voice in a world so opposed to righteousness and truth, and his impact has brought hope and light to those craving goodness and morality. Stephen has written 5 books, including his latest, God and Cancel Culture, which will be released on September 7th. This book can be pre-ordered now at stevestrangbooks.com or purchased at the event table. You will not want to miss this incredibly timely read by a world-changing leader who continues to stand strong in the midst of cancellation to bring hope and faith to the nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, here to expose the corruption of the cancel culture, please stand to your feet and greet my good friend, Steve, there he is, Strang.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to be here, and I'm so proud of how Clay Clark has brought us all together. You know, a lot of conservatives feel like they're all alone. And if you watch the media, you might feel that way, but we're not alone, are we? And it's just beautiful to see how all the different speeches fit together. And the last 2 speakers both referred to cancel culture. It's a very important topic. That's what I'm here to talk about. And it's what I wrote about in the book that you just saw, God and Cancel Culture. It's my way, as a Christian journalist, to try to sound the alarm. I see my role in the body of Christ as a watchman on the wall. And I think sooner or later, they're going to cancel all of us. This is an effort to cancel not only conservative values, but what are those based on? They're based originally on the Word of God. And in my book, I walk through that there's an agenda in our country toward the left, to socialism, to communism, which is always atheistic, which is always eliminates God. And that is why I wrote this book. I've also experienced cancel culture in a small way. I wrote God, Trump, in the 2020 election. It was my impassioned plea on why Trump must win or all these bad things would happen, but also why Trump might lose. The book came out in January, 9 months before the election, and Amazon.com sold tens of thousands of copies. And then in July, August, September, and October, Amazon bought 0 copies. And if you're in the publishing business like me, you know that Amazon buys copies of lots of books all the time. They took off the buy button. They didn't eliminate it, you just couldn't buy it from them. And this is what's happening. And then when we asked why, they wouldn't give us an answer. But they were trying to slow walk anything they thought would help Donald Trump. More recently, you may know that I'm a publisher as well as writing books. And in fact, I'm very proud to say that I published Stella Manuel's book, Let America Live. This just came off the press. I just saw it for the first time an hour ago, and I'm so proud to be her publisher. She's actually got a big part in God and Cancel Culture because I have a whole chapter on how they're trying to cancel anyone who says anything about COVID and now vaccines that isn't the standard line. But you know, I'll tell you that some of my own staff warned me against publishing the book. They say if we publish that, we may get canceled. She was going to publish it herself. Many people do that. But it's hard to get distribution if you're not with a publisher, right? I said I didn't care. But I will tell you this, we are having trouble placing it. It's not really being canceled, at least not yet. I need your help to get out the word about the importance of this book. I read this book early to convince myself that I was willing to take a stand with Stella Manuel. And if you haven't gotten their book, I just had to put in that little plug. You know, cancel culture is not new. Tyrants and dictators have always canceled opponents. And we see this even today in communist China and North Korea. You know that. It's just that in the land of the free and the home of the brave, with our constitutional rights, we didn't think it would ever happen to us. But there are people that want to cancel us. And one of the first modern examples of cancellation, what we now call cancel culture, which is a relatively new term, was Anita Bryant. Is anyone here old enough to remember Anita Bryant? She was a popular singer. She had 4 #1 songs. One of them was Paper Lions, right? Paper Roses. I was a very small boy at the time. She was so popular that the Florida Citrus Commission in my home state of Florida hired her to be the spokesperson and represent Florida Citrus. She sang some little ditty about how wonderful it was to drink orange juice. She was very popular. She was also a very outspoken Christian. And in 1977, the city of Miami, which has always been liberal, passed one of the first so-called anti-discrimination ordinances that really gave special privileges to the gay community, which was not really a political force at the time. There was actually a referendum, and she kind of led the fight. They called it Save Our Children. The referendum actually passed to repeal the law by 66%. But the gay community decided to make her the poster girl, so to speak, of everything that was anti-gay. And today, if you look her up on Wikipedia, the headline says, Anita Bryant, American singer and anti-gay rights activist. Then it goes on to say how she opposed gay rights. And it tells the story from a very different perspective. It also tells that she was one of the first public people to be pied. There was a press conference. I've seen it, you know, clips of it. I mean, it was fairly famous. And somebody came up and stuck a pie in her face. You've probably seen it. It's happened ever since. She was one of the first. And here's the thing. I put it in my book, and I wanted to read it to you. The threats implicit in this Wikipedia version of Bryant's life couldn't be clearer. Dare to speak against the new immoral agenda, and you will be torn down in every way. Have your career frozen, your finances drained, and your life painted in the worst light, and be publicly humiliated. I see what happened to her as an early example of what was to come, though at the time the idea of cancel culture controlling the minds of so many seemed like something out of fiction. But we've seen it happen, haven't we? Just recently, Jim Daly, who's the president of Focus on the Family, which is only about a mile or so from where we sit, they wrote an article on the new Assistant Secretary of Health in HHS. The secretary's name is Rachel Levine. Anybody heard of Rachel? Rachel was born Richard Levine. He went to Tulane University. He got married, and he and his wife had 2 children. And then around 2000, he started an odd odyssey to becoming a woman. And when Focus on the Family wrote about it and his resume, because, you know, to be a high-ranking official like that, you have to have accomplished a lot of things, and in his career he did, or her career she did. They mentioned the transgender journey, which is odd. We have never had anyone that high up in government who is transgender. Because of the fact they even mentioned it, they were canceled on Twitter. It also happened to Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. Anybody ever heard the Harbinger? Well, I have the privilege of publishing the Harbinger as well. And Jonathan Cahn is a very strong man, very committed, but he has never really gotten involved in politics. He's always stood as a prophet. And the day after the inauguration, he posted a video on YouTube. And in it, he gave a prophetic warning to our new president, Joe Biden. And he quoted our first president, George Washington, who said, as long as America followed God, God would bless America. But if we ever turned from God, God would withhold his blessing. And he told President Biden that he needed to be careful not to have policies that would cause God to withdraw his blessing. He mainly focused on the abortion issue. He did not mention some of these hot button issues. He didn't mention the election fraud. He didn't mention Donald Trump. It wasn't political. It went viral. It got 1.5 million views in 24 hours. And then YouTube took it down because it was controversial, because it was on election fraud. They literally said it was on election fraud. You can watch it. He didn't mention it. It is such an important message that I actually put it as an appendix, word for word, in the back of this book. But this just shows that someone even like Rabbi Cahn, as respected as he is going to be canceled. And of course we know that the former president himself was canceled. I mean, it's ludicrous that they would cancel any president. Mike Lindell was canceled. His stores won't sell his pillows. What does buying a pillow have to do with the politics of the founder? Nothing. But the other side is trying to punish and is trying to intimidate. So we hear this happened to these people, Jim Daly, Rabbi Cahn, Mike Lindell, and we say, you know, they got canceled. Something bad happened to them. Maybe I need to be careful. Maybe I need to not post this on Facebook. Maybe did you hear about the man who did a like and lost his job at Marriott? I mean, what could be more innocent than that? That's like getting fired almost for a thought going through your mind. So then people become afraid, and when they become afraid, they self-cancel. And I believe that that is the most dangerous cancellation of all, because if we self-cancel, they don't have to cancel us one by one. You know, there's so much more I could say. I've written an entire book on it. Yesterday, I spoke at another conference and gave an hour-long speech, and I see my time is up. So you'll have to buy the book to get the rest of it. But I will say this, as there's a lot in the book about spirituality. I believe that we're in a spiritual war. And I know a lot of you do too. And you know, there's power in prayer. And you can't really quantify it, you can't measure it, but there's power in prayer. There's evidence that in England they prayed and God performed a miracle at Dunkirk. You know the story about the flotilla. It probably turned the tide of that war. There's others examples of where people pray, and we can pray. You know, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And I believe that what is happening may spark a great revival. I write about that a lot too. It's interesting that when I'm interviewed by the secular people like the New York Times, they never mention that stuff. They just think it's a lot of nonsense. But you know, if we really believe it, we have to act in our beliefs. So with that, I'll wrap up. I wish I could tell you a lot of other stories, but I want to quote Donald Trump. He recently said this when he addressed CPAC in Dallas, Texas. He said, with the help of everyone here, today we will defeat the radical left, the socialists, the Marxists, the critical race theorists. We will restore free speech and free elections. We will secure our borders, and we will make America great again. And then he said, we will stop left-wing cancel culture. Thank you, and God bless you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, let's hear for Steve Strang. Oh, yeah.